Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Diptii Shah, and welcome to my show, Artistry. Today I have with me the wonderful Jessica Dante of the YouTube channel Love and London. You have more than 200,000 subscribers now. At which number, you were like, okay, this is a sustainable thing to do. I have arrived. What was that number? What was that sweet figure that you thought that it's all right, I can carry on?
I don't think it was ever about the subscriber number, because I know people who have 2 million subscribers and are not really running a sustainable business. Obviously, everyone's version of success and sustainability of business is different, but I look to what they're doing and they're kind of just like getting by or sticking with another job still, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But what we have done is I feel like we found out a way to monetize beyond AdSense pretty early in the game, like way before 100,000 subscribers. I would say like around 50,000 subscribers, because we were doing evergreen content. And then we started selling our own travel guides. That ended up being, it still is our biggest revenue driver. So because we were able to get our audience to start buying things directly from us, we had a business way earlier, I think, than most people on YouTube do. So I think, like, I'm not sure about the subscriber level to answer your question, but I basically just got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm basically making as much as I would if I was freelancing. So now I'm only going to focus on this. And then because I was also able to devote all my time to it, it meant the business grew a lot faster.
You are, yes, as you correctly put it, you are one of those who could go beyond the YouTube AdSense revenue and actually build a sustainable business around multiple products. And I understand that you're going on doing that and expanding in much bigger way. So the travel guides, uh, was this your plan from the beginning, or did you actually think about it as you moved on in your journey?
So I don't think, no, it actually wasn't my plan from the beginning. I think from the beginning, my vision was, oh, I'll do what every other influencer does, and I'll like build up this big community, and then I'll do brand partnerships. But then brand partnerships are really hard to come across. And also, if you don't have like big numbers, then the amounts, especially back then, were that brands would be willing to pay you were so low that it basically, to this day, it's still a lot of times I get pitches and I'm like, I can't even pay my staff to produce this video for the amount that you're offering me. So I think what happened was I was really trying to learn about digital marketing, and I came across a lot of stuff about email marketing, and I learned a lot about people who had businesses where they would sell courses and they would sell digital books and things like that. And I thought that was quite interesting because it's a relatively easy way compared to, say, like a physical guidebook. It's a pretty easy way to get your information to someone's hands and actually have pretty high profit margins. Like once it's made, it's like basically all profit. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can do that. And something for me too, I was like, when you get actual physical travel books, they go out of date really quickly. Whereas if it's digital, we can add links, we can update the links if they end up getting broken. We can deliver what we do for our itineraries, for example, is if you buy in 2022, when we update for the 2023 version, you get that for free. And like we can do that because it really doesn't cost us anything to do that. But people like that they will get that just in case they push their trip off or something. So yeah, once I kind of figured out that was something I wanted to do, we have like just gone full force into that.
For the travel guides, was YouTube your primary platform of sales, or do you also have a website or any other like medium?
So we have the YouTube channel, the website. Instagram, TikTok. But in terms of like direct sales, the majority of them come from people who are on our email list. So whether that's we do some kind of sale, or on launch, we always do a 72-hour sale, and we can see who's using those codes from our email list and things like that. But the main purpose of all of our social channels and our website is to get people onto our email list, because then we can put them through welcome sequences and automations that basically do like try to sell them the guides. So, and people tend to be more invested, and like if they're coming from email versus if they watch like one YouTube video, it's very hard to get somebody to buy something from one YouTube video, especially like our guides are not the cheapest, but people will buy them once they get to know me and my expertise and they get to know the brand. But if they come across one video, like no one's going to buy. So that's email's huge for us.
Aren't you constantly learning on your journey?
Constantly. Like we switched over to Shopify to sell our guides. I think the end of 2020, or maybe the beginning of 2021, I think it was. Neither Danny, my assistant, or I had ever used Shopify. So that was like a whole learning to figure out how to set that up and what we can do with that. And we're still always learning like, oh, there's this thing we can do. We can add this, we can do this, blah, blah, blah. This will increase conversions. I think just owning a business is just constantly learning, which is fun. I like doing that. But also sometimes you're like, I would just love a week where I just feel like I know the answers.
And especially technology, isn't it? Every platform you got to like, oh my God, what happened? What changed in one night, isn't it?
Exactly. Oh my God. Yeah. That is TikTok in a nutshell. I'm like, this worked 2 days ago. Why is this not working now?
Right. So Jess, currently, what are your multiple streams of income?
So our biggest stream of income is sales of our travel guides from our Shopify shop. That has been consistent across the board. And then our second biggest revenue stream for the last 2 years has been brand partnerships. So we've worked with a few different brands. Our biggest in the last couple of years has been an ambassadorship with Google Pixel, which is the phone that I use. We've also worked with like Lingoda and a few other brands. Affiliate commissions are also a pretty big revenue driver for us. So that's when people book hotels through our links, we get a commission off of that. I also sometimes bring in revenue from doing like consulting work or speaking. And that covers, I think, those are the main revenue drivers, but occasionally other things pop up.
And YouTube revenue.
Oh, of course. How could I forget? Yes. So this is the thing. So this goes to show, because it's so up and down, it is kind of like, I never rely on YouTube AdSense, because you just never really know. And we're quite lucky now. We're getting quite a bit of views, and our CPMs have gone up. But so it is actually a pretty decent chunk of money at this point, but you just never really know. So I'm always like, it's a nice extra to have, but we cannot rely on that.
What about taxes? How do you file taxes as through all these incomes?
Yeah. So basically everything comes into the business account. It goes into R0. So we track everything. We just became VAT registered, which has been a really interesting learning. I'm having to go back in the last 6 months and like figure out all the VAT, what we owe for certain things in VAT that we didn't actually charge for because blah, blah, blah. But also VAT we've paid to balance that off as well. And then I've got a really great accountant who we do a lot of check-ins, and he answers any questions I ever have about anything. But basically, because we are a limited company now, I am a director. So any money that I take as my salary, I then have to keep taxes to the side to pay that out at some point to the government. And then any profit that the company has, we will have to pay corporation tax on that. But I haven't actually done that yet because we are so new to limited company.
So all things wonderful are happening. Let us talk about your struggles in the journey, your top 3 challenges in your 7-year YouTube journey.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the big one was COVID. We just basically we had a full year of just people not really coming to London or not really knowing. Also, the majority of our audience, especially the people who buy from us, really skew to Americans. And so Americans were, even in like the in-betweens of 2020, were not comfortable flying over here. So that was a really big challenge. And I don't even know how we got through it, to be honest. I think I was just honest. If I'm completely honest, I was in a very fortunate position that I was not really going to be out on the streets or anything. But it was, Love in London, the profit for specifically Love in London. I did do some separate consulting in 2020, but our profit ended up being £700 in 2020 and I was like because no money was really coming in. And I was also trying to pivot and try different things. And I was putting money into trying to do pivots and nothing was working. So it was crazy. And thankfully 2021, it did pick up, but the first few months were still very tricky. And we did do a lot better, thankfully. So that
I actually
was really
watched
good.
that video of yours. I was in Hong
Oh,
Kong at the
yes.
time and I was like, oh my God, this is really tough.
Yeah, really, really tough. And again, I'm very grateful that I was never gonna have a problem. And I hate to cut the hours of my freelancers, but the beauty of having people who are working on a freelance basis is I didn't have to lay anybody off. I didn't have to do furlough or anything like that. And actually, we don't have I have like no overheads, especially at that point. We didn't have office space. We didn't have like really any major ongoing costs. So that was good. So that was the big one. Like that's, thankfully I would say we've recovered from that at this point, but it's even like the end of last year, we're still trying to like get through a few things. So, yeah, that's a big one. I think, hiring is always quite interesting. I've been quite lucky. I have some really great freelancers that really know what they're doing and they stick to deadlines and stuff. But I think there's always every business owner is like trying to figure out where's the balance of, we really need some help with this, but do we have the budget to support a freelancer and pay them at a wage that is like a good wage and that isn't like taking advantage, especially when we're trying to hire creatives. I want to always make sure we're paying people fairly. So that's a really big one. And then our biggest thing last year, we had so many successes, but then we, at the end of the year, launched a tours and experiences arm of the business. And the model that I set up for that was that we were basically a marketplace where we have a curated list of small tour companies that we love and we think are doing really cool and interesting things in London. And we are like basically resellers of what they're doing. So in theory, that was like, I thought that was going to be kind of like an easy way, not an easy way, but that was going to be like the MVP version of opening up to like having basically our own tour business. But the technology wasn't really there. So it actually ended up being like quite clunky for suppliers to deal with and for us to deal with as well. Basically every step of the way of getting this thing sorted, we had challenges at like expensive challenges. And ultimately I was like, this is not scalable. We launched in the down season and it was just not working. And I was like, imagine when it gets to summer and we're hopefully sending, $5,000 worth of bookings to each of these companies. And like, this is just not working. So we made the decision at the beginning of the month, to basically finish that model, despite all the money and time that we put into it. And then to basically still work with those partners on an affiliate basis, but we send them the bookings and we'll get a commission. But then we're building out our own tours and experiences, which people will book directly with us. We'll have the tour guides that we've hired. We'll work with the suppliers directly, and it's basically an entirely huge business that we're building this year. But yeah, it was a very expensive and time consuming and stressful lesson.
When you have this, that deluge of ideas, how do you, sound it with someone? I mean, how do you know which one to go ahead with?
Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just have to try it. Sometimes there are things you can do though. Like for example, we've had a lot of different ideas for guides and courses that we wanted to launch. And before we put all the time and effort and money into making them, we almost always will do a pre-sale. So we make like a really strong sales page and outline what is going to be included. And we do like a week of a pre-sale period where we say, if you buy this now, you'll get it next month, but you'll get it at a much lower price. And we explain that it shows us that people want it. And we explain exactly why we're doing a pre-sale. And basically we set here's the minimum of we need to sell. And if we don't sell that, then we refund everybody and we don't make it. So we've done that a few times where we didn't reach the amount that we wanted. So it was good because these were like, a couple of them were really big courses that would have probably cost me about $3,000 and a lot of my time to actually produce. And then I might never have gotten that money back because people didn't actually care, or they didn't want it, or it's too expensive, or they just weren't interested. So I always say if you can do something like that, then definitely like for sure do that because it saves you a lot of time and money.
Right. So you already have a minimum viable product, right? That's what an MVP is. And you test the waters, see what your audience wants, your prospective clients want, and otherwise take a step back if they don't actually need it.
Exactly. Yeah.
When people start a YouTube channel or a business, they say that you need to have a USP, a unique selling proposition. What is the USP of Love in London and the business that follows it?
Yeah. So the USP is that we have a person, a Londoner, attached to the information that's being given. So part of the advantage of that is that everybody wants, when they go to a new city, everybody wants to have a friend there that will be like, yeah, here's my list of really cool stuff. Like, ignore all that stuff. Here's where me and my friends go. So we have the advantage of like, I am that person, and we're going to be bringing other people onto the channel as well, but it's always going to be that we're like using them to establish that relationship with viewers as well. And that makes us stand out from, the big digital media companies that are like kind of faceless, which, there's room for that as well. But that's what's different about us. And it also means that we can like bring personality into it. So, I'm in a video and I like trip over a curb and we'll keep that in. Or there's a lot of videos where I stop mid-sentence and I'm like, dog, and point, we leave stuff in like that. And that gives us a lot of liberty to do fun things like that, which just makes it more personable. And people like, they reach out to us and they're like, Jess, like, hey, Jess, like, blah, blah, blah. They talk to me like they've known me for years. So that's something that we're going to continue as we like expand and it's, to be honest, it's also a challenge. This is going to be very trial and error, but that's something that we want to keep as we expand to Paris and, grow London and go to different cities, is that we want to have people that are establishing themselves as like the local friend in all the content. And they're the ones who are giving the information and also informing in the guides that we sell and things like that. So that's what makes us stand out from a lot of other places you can get information.
Did you consciously do any part of this personal branding?
I think, well, in the beginning, it just started as like, I can't hire someone, so I'm going to be the one that delivers the information. And to be honest, like I'm a Leo, so I love the attention, to be honest. I like being on camera. I like talking to camera. I like interacting with people. And so it kind of just always went that way. I did know eventually I wanted to bring other people on. And it's, again, like another thing that's been pushed off because of COVID. And I still want to get there. And I'm hoping by the end of this year, we'll start to bring a couple other people on. But it was almost like it just had to be that way too, because I wasn't going to get anyone else to do it. So it was just me.
So do you agree that the future of branding is personal? any business in the future, big or small, would need to have a personal brand, a strong personal brand to attract future clients?
Um, I not necessarily. I think it doesn't necessarily have to have a person attached to it. I do think it helps though, because especially like for me, I follow a lot of female founders that are especially that are based in London, even if I'm not really that clued up on what their business is. But I learn more about the business through their own personal Instagram accounts, talking about like, we're doing this meeting today and we're doing that and blah blah blah. So I do think that helps. I do think though that, but there's also like a lot of brands that have good branding in general, but don't necessarily have a person attached to it, but they might have like their own little personality. So, I think maybe, for example, like I recently bought, a razor from Estrid, which is they do like, it's like relatively more sustainable razors where you get like the steel handle and then they send you the razor blades to replace them. And like they have really, there's no person attached to that as far as I know, at least, but they have like really interesting branding in terms of what they stand for when it comes to women and body hair. And they are just like really colorful and fun. And they've made shaving way more cute and fun than any other company in the industry has done before. Usually you go into Boots and you just get like the 10 pack of the plastic pink razors and like it costs, you know, an arm and a leg. And but for them, I'm like, oh, this is like such an interesting, cute company. Like the box comes and it's really like nicely packaged and it's just all designed nicely. And I think that can work too. But having people attached to things is always, you're never really going to go that wrong with that either. So
We are in 2023. Would you advise someone to start a YouTube channel now that the competition is killing?
yes. So
Why?
it's it's I mean, I go back and forth a little bit on that. I would, but I would say it's, you really have to have some sort of differentiator, because there's a lot of content about a lot of things on YouTube right now. So any niche that you think you might want to explore, you should look into it and find out who else is doing that. I do think there's always room for somebody doing something in a different way. So even if it's the topic is not necessarily that niche, but you're presenting it in a different way, or you're speaking to like a different audience who's into that, or you're just like more entertaining on camera or something like that. I think there's always room for that, but like you have to, it's hard to do that from the beginning, because it can take a long time to shape your voice and to really like understand what direction you want to go in. But it can be done, but it takes a while, and you just have to think about, what am I bringing that no one else is doing right now?
Okay, what are the top 3 qualities of a YouTuber must have?
Oh, persistence, because it takes so long to see any results, especially these days, to see like anything coming through. I would say creativity, but you don't need to necessarily be like creativity in terms of being like a really creative photographer or videographer or something like that. Like just creativity in terms of your ideas of how you can do things differently. Like I wouldn't say I'm a like traditionally creative person, but I think my creativity is a little bit more in business. And also just thinking about the challenges that people have and like what's an interesting way, how can we solve that? And I think the final one is to always be open to learning and just like soaking up information. Like we were talking about before, you just have to, there's just so much to learn and it changes constantly. And you have to be open to analyzing, improving every time you upload, and figuring out how can the next video be better? How can that be better? How can this be better? How do I learn how to do this? Let me take this Skillshare course to learn how to make better thumbnails in Photoshop. Let me do this. Let me do that, blah, blah, blah. Let me learn how to be a better storyteller. I think that's you need to really have that.
And from a YouTuber to a businesswoman, What are the top 3 challenges of running a business?
So for me at the moment, it's time. There's just so much that we're trying to do. And I also have like my personal brand of Just Dante going in a certain direction of ideas I want to do in the next few years. So I'm trying to work on that as well. But also like you're, especially in the first few years, like you're basically running everything. So you are doing all the creative, which in itself could be 3 people doing that job, more or even more, depending on what you're doing. But you're also doing all of the things you need to do to, like, if you want to set up a Shopify shop, you're the Shopify e-commerce person. You're the customer service person when things go wrong. You are the one that designs the guides that goes in that you're actually selling. You are your accountant until you hire one. You're the financial person until you eventually have someone who does that for you. You're your email marketer. Like, it's just, there's so many hats to wear. But that's how it is to start a business. But once you push through and get to the point where you can start to get people to help a little bit, it just feels so much better.
What keeps you going, Jess, every day?
The people that my freelancers that I work with, actually, they keep me going. I love working with them. Like, they're doing really cool things. And I think it's cool to see how they're helping us, and then also see how like they're developing based off of feedback that I give and ideas that I have. I love that. That's really cool. It's also nice to have the interaction, because before I had freelancers, obviously I was just like working by myself all the time for years. So, to be fair, I still, like, because we're all remote, I still have days where I'm like, I haven't actually spoken to anyone in person today. I think like something that I really love is when I'm like on the street somewhere in Soho or something, and someone will be like, "Hi." And I'm like, "Hello?" And they're like, "Oh my God, I love your YouTube channel." And I'm like, "Oh my God." It truly makes my day. It's like, I absolutely love it. And I think stuff like that is really, seeing people in person is so important, because it's very easy to just be behind a screen and like these people just end up being numbers. But it's like actual people that take your advice and go on their trip, and they like go to things that you recommend. And I'm like, that's so cool. And I love like when small businesses tell us, "Oh, we had people come in today that said that you recommended us." Like, that fuels me. I love hearing that. So yeah, I think that covers it.
Yes, yes, much beyond the moolah, the impact and the connections that you have created is fabulous. Great going, Jess. I wish you all the best. I'm one of your fans. And thank you so much for taking time out to speak with us.
Thanks for having me. This has been great. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate your time. Please do consider subscribing to my channel. I would love your support. Thank you.